Today we'll be discussing about ratio, proportions, and percentages. Uh, Ratio, I would say it's nothing but when two numbers are given, like say if you have a number A as 30 and B as 100, the ratio would be given as A is to B, or simply it would be given as A by B, and it is the numbers one below the other, like 30 by 100. So you will be given a ratio in the most simplest form. It would be 3 by 10. So we should not, if we are given a ratio as A is to B as 3 is to 10, we should not take it as directly the number is A is equal to 3 or B is equal to 10. This is like a basic which we must have already know. So if you want to double a ratio, like if we are given A is to B as 3 is to 10, and if you want to double a ratio, we need to just multiply the numerator by 2. And so if I multiply 2 into 3 by 10, I'm going to get 3 is to 5. So 3 is to 5 is the double of the ratio A is to B, which is 3 is to 10. Similarly, if you want to half a ratio, so if you want to get half of A is to B, then just multiply the denominator by 2. So half of 3 is to 10 would be 3 is to 20. And two ratios are said to be in proportion if they both are equal. So that means if A is to B is 3 is to 10 and X is to Y is 3 is to 10, then these two are said to be in proportion. And this concept which I'm going to tell right now, you would be most probably using it to solve some kind of problems. That is, if you are given two ratios, one is A is to B, which is 2 is to 5, and B is to C, which is 3 is to 8. And if you are asked to find A is to B is to C, just take the common number in it. I mean to say, take the common ratio, that is B, common number in this, and get it to as a same number. So if A is to B is 2 is to 5 and B is to C is 3 is to 8, so B is the common one. So 5 and 3, you need to make sure that you get it to a same number. So multiply A is to B by 3. So if I multiply entire numerator and denominator of A is to B by 3, I'm going to get 6 is to 15, and I'm going to multiply B is to C by 5. So I'm going to get B is to C as 15 is to 40 if I multiply by 5. So now I have 15 and 15 equal. So I can write directly as 6 is to 15 is to 40, which is A is to B is to C. So this concept you would be most probably using to solve some kind of problems. So moving on to the next one, which I wanted to cover. So if you have percentages, uh, percentages is something I think most probably everyone would be familiar of. So if I have any number, say 100, and if I want to get 10% of it, 10% of it would be 10. And if I have any other number, say 90, and 100% of it would be 90 itself, and 90% would be a bit lower than that, and 10% of it would be 9 and something like that. So this is percentages. And if you are given successive percentages, so successive percentages in the sense, if I am given a 10% discount initially, and then again I am given another 20% discount, then to find out the effective percentage change, I can use this formula. So you can just remember only one scenario in this, that is A plus B plus A into B by 100, and you can use it for all scenarios. So I will just tell you how to use it. So let's say you have a stock. So the initial price of the stock is 100, and the stock increased by 10% initially, 10% increase, and then again it increased by 20%. So effective change is not 30%, 10 plus 20. That is because initially 100 increased by 10%, and then you are getting 110, and then on 110 it is increasing by another 20%. So that's why it is not just 20 plus 10. You can use this formula. So since both are increase, you can use A plus B plus A into B by 100. So that would be 10 plus 20 into 10 by 100. So you would get 32. Uh, Similarly, you can also use if one is an increase and another is a decrease, just denote that as a minus sign in your formula and you will be able to solve it. So if one is a 10% increase and another is a 5% decrease, so if I want to put that in my formula, I would put it as 10 minus 5 plus 10 into minus 5 whole divided by 100. So in this way you can find out the effective percentage change. So at the end, if you get it as a negative, then your effective percentage is a decrease. At the end, if you get your answer as positive and a number, and that denotes an increase. So you can use you can remember you remember only one of this, that is a plus b plus ab into 100, and use it for all other scenarios. Similarly, in percentages we get the concept of cost price, selling price, mark price. I think more you would be familiar of this. So just remember that everything would be on cost price. So if I get a profit, that should be calculated on cost price. If you get a loss, that should also be calculated on cost price. And market price is something like I'm not selling at a market price. I give a discount on market price and then sell it at another price, that is the selling price. So since these are all concepts which we must have already been familiar with, I just don't want to give more details on it. These are some of the formulas which might be handy, like mark price minus discount is equal to cost price plus profit. This is equal because mark price minus discount is nothing but the selling price. Cost price plus profit is nothing but the selling price. So these both are equal. And similarly, mark price minus discount is also equal to cost price minus loss. And profit percentage, as I said, profit and loss should always be calculated on cost price only. So profit percentage is selling price minus cost price divided by cost price into 100, and similarly loss percentage also. So this is pretty much of the concepts. So C1 is to C2 is already given as 2 by 3. So 3C1 equal to 2C2. I just cross multiplied. So C1 is 2/3 of C2. You may write it in this way, or just you can have this relation. So, and again, I'm given that after shifting 10 students from C1 to C2. So I'm shifting 10 students. So I'm subtracting 10 from C1 and adding 10 to C2. And it is given that if I do this operation, the ratio is becoming 3:7. So I just, after doing this operation, I just wrote it as 3/7. So for C1, I already have a relation here because C1 is to C2 is already given as 2 by 3. So C1, I'm just substituting. So I'm doing this so that I can find out C2. So I just substituted it and I just simplified it, and I found out C2. So if you want me to go through how I simplified, I can, but I think once this is done, it should be simple, right? So I got C2, and if I substitute C2 here, I'll get C1. So now I have C1 and C2. Now I'll just, so since I have C1 and C2, uh, after doing the first operation, it is again 30 by 70, because C1 by C2 is 40 by 60, and you can also think it in a manual way, like shifting 10 students would be 40 minus 10, which is 30, and adding 10 to 60 would be 70. So I have both the ratios. So further, after this, again another operation is done. That is, how many students have to be shifted from C2 to C1 for the new ratio to become 9:11 is my question. So for that, I'm adding. So now I'm shifting from C2 to C1. So I'm subtracting some constant from C2 and adding that to C1, and the ratio is becoming as 9:11. So simplifying for B, I get the value as 50. Hope this approach is clear. I think most of you also approach the similar way, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, so I'll just give a trick to it because I hope you understood the overall approach what she did. I'll just a trick to it. So the question is the ratio of the number of students in two classrooms C1 C2 is 2:3. It is observed that after shifting 10 students from C1 to C2, the ratio is 3:7. further how many students should be. So the trick is, so C1 to C2 is 2 is to 3. So I can write C1 as 2K class members and C2 has 3K class members. Okay. Now there is a shift of 10 students from classes that is from C1 to C2. That is what it is given. So with that being said, so we have to do basically 2K minus 10 by 3K plus 10, which is basically what even she did, by 3K plus 10 is equal to C by 3 by 7. When you solve for this, you get the K value, and accordingly, you know the numbers are basically what it is, like 30 and 70, which C1 and C2 after the shifting is done. Now, what I'll ask you to do is basically try out various options. So for in 30 to 70, if I basically add 10 and subtract 10 or whatever that is, so what is happening is basically it is 20, sorry, it will have to shift another from C2 to, so basically add 10 to 30, it is 40 by 60, which is 2 is to 3 again, which is not the right answer because there's to 9 by 11. Then I add 15 and subtract 15 from this, which is 45 by 55, which is 9 by 11, and hence it is solved. So you shouldn't actually look at solving the second bit, just try out options and get it done. So it shouldn't take you more. So the last bit which she did, which is more conceptual in nature, can be eliminated just by putting in options.
Okay. Here I'm given the ratio of number of teachers to the number of students in school district M and school district P. Okay, I'm just denoting the ratio as teachers as T and district as M. So teachers to students at district M is equal to teachers to student ratio at district P. So that is already given to me because it is given as same. Now I am asked what is the ratio of the number of students in school district M to school district P. So this is what I am asked. So from what is given to me, I understand that if I get the ratio of teachers in district M to teachers in district P, if I can determine this number, I can say that statement is sufficient. So this is what I'm looking at from the given statements. So now I got a hang of what is being asked and what I already know. I'm going to the first statement. First statement tells me that there are 1,000 more students in school district M than there are in school district P. So in school district M, there are 1,000 more students than in school district P. So I am not in no way I can determine the ratio of TM by TP using this information, because I can assume any number of values and the ratio keeps on changing. I cannot get a unique value. So I should get a unique value, then only my statement is sufficient. So since the statement A is insufficient, I'm going to B, C, and E, because A and D are not going to be my answer choices now, because statement A alone is anyways not sufficient. So each statement alone also cannot be my answer. So I'm going to check B, C, and D options. I'll just write B, C, and D. So B, C, and E are my potential answer choices now. So if I look at statement 2 just tells me that the ratio of number of teachers in school district M, number of teachers to students in school district M is 1 by 20. Using this information alone also, I cannot determine the ratio of TM by TP. Again, because I never know what is SP and I never know what TP is, I cannot derive any relationship. So this statement alone is insufficient. So I will strike off B. If I combine both the statements, I still don't know. Like I don't know what the ratio is going to be. I cannot determine. So even if I substitute TM by SP plus 10,000 equal to 1 by 20, and if I want to solve it also, it's very difficult for me because there are two unknowns. If I have two unknowns, at least I want to have two equations. So this is again insufficient. So C is also gone. E is my answer.
Example, the last thing that Sri did is by T, M, and basically getting the. You don't have to. You have to just see whether it is any satisfying A, B, C, or D. You're done. If you think it is not certain, it's E. We don't need an answer. We are just looking at towards the direction. That's the trick.
So so yeah. So in this question statement, I'm given that Ali's take home pay was something, and she saved some fraction of her take home pay, and again it is talking about something which she did not save and things like that. So to maintain consistency, because the question is again going into yearly terms, I'm just being clear on the terms that I'm assuming. So monthly take home, I'm just assuming it as X, and monthly saving, assuming it as Y, and the savings, which is the amount which is not saved, is obviously going to be take home pay minus the savings, which is X minus Y. And here I am given a condition that the total amount of money that she saved at the end of the year. So here it is going to be, since this is monthly, and total savings at the end of the year is going to be 12 into Y, and that is going to be 3 into X minus Y, 3 times of the amount of that portion of her monthly take home pay that she did not save. So it is going to be 3 into X minus Y. So simplifying, I get a relation that Y is equal to X by 5. So if I look back at the question is just asking me, it gave a condition that all money that she saved last year was from her take home pay only. So that just conveys me that savings are not coming from anywhere else, and Y is my only savings. And and then the question prompt is asking what fraction of her take home pay did she save each month. So the relation which I got tells me that savings are 1/5 of my take home pay. So the fraction which I'm looking at is 1/5. So 1/5 is directly my option here. Okay, yeah, as you all said, I also did 4,000, 10,000. Again 6,400 and 16,000. You must have also achieved at the same. It's just the 40% of the remainder amount. So now I would be paying, so to buy one machine, I would be paying 20,000, which is this one, 20,000. I just splitted it because first we'll be paying the 20,000 and then the remainder amount and the finance charges, 6,400. So I'll get 26,400 and two machines. How much less for two machines? So it's asking two machines. So total would be 52,800. And similarly for machine B, we'll be paying the initial 50,000, and apart from that the finance charges would be 16,000. So total would be 66,000, and 66,000 minus 52,800 would be 13,200. Yeah, so this is kind of a difficult question. Okay, I'll show how I'm going to approach it. So as you said, mostly we'll be taking, instead of X, we'll be taking it as 100 generally. You can take it as X and you can do it, but generally, most probably everyone will be
Yeah,
taking it
even
as
I will
100.
suggest try to take as 100 because the calculation becomes easy. That's the only thing.
Okay, so here I'm given a list price. So I'm taking the list price as 100. So a discount of 19% on list price. So my cost price is going to be 81. This is my list price and my cost price has become 81. So I got so he made a profit of 20% by selling the product A after giving a discount of 10%. So as I said, profit and loss, everything would be calculated on cost price only. So he might give a discount. Let's keep it aside. So he may give the discount, the value might change, but we are not concerned about it because profit is anyways calculated on cost price only. So directly I'm going ahead and finding out what the profit is. So I found out the profit as 16.2, and Agrima, as you said, 81 plus 20% of 81 is my selling price, which is 97.2. And now I'm finding out the mark price. Uh, no, no, no. So I got the selling price as 97.2. That's one thing. Now he gave after giving a discount of 10% on the market price. So understand one thing, he gave a discount of 10%. So he is not giving 10% discount on the cost price which he brought. He is again marking it up to some kind of a mark price, and again he is giving discount on that mark price, and then he is getting a profit. So I don't know
So
what markup
understand
is.
it is like this. He has marked up. It's like the MRP, and he's giving some discount on the MRP, which is basically the selling price. What Sri is mentioning about, which is 97.2.
So my selling price is this much, 97.2, and I'm giving a discount on mark price, and then I'm selling it at 97.2. So if I give a discount of 10%, then I am selling it at 90% of my mark price. Hope this is clear. Otherwise, like you can say mark price minus 10% of mark price, which is nothing but selling price. So I am selling it after giving a 10% discount on my mark price. So this is nothing but 90% of my mark price, which is equal to 97.2. And then I found out my mark price. Just by simplifying it, you'll get the mark price as 108, which is nothing but uh, when you go back to the question, he is telling that if X is the percentage above the list price at which John marked product A. So 108. So here you can see on the list price there is an 8% markup. So that is nothing but X as per the question. So I am just keeping it aside. Now I'm moving to the second part of the question, which is talking about my product B. So again, I am so here we don't have anything like discount or anything like that. It's directly talking about he just directly brought a product. So directly my cost price is going to be 100. You can also assume mark price as 100 and 0% discount. Then again your cost price is going to be 100. So one and the same. So again my selling price is going to be 105. That is because he sold it at a profit of 5%. So if you are selling it at a profit of 5%, your selling price is definitely 105, because profit is calculated always on cost price, and 5% of 100 is 5 and selling price is 105. Now again there is a markup. I am not directly selling it at 105. I am marking it up and then I am selling it at 105. So similar concept, mark price, since I'm giving a 12.5% of discount, so 87.5% of my mark price is going to be my selling price. Similarly, I'll find out what the mark price of product B is. This is related to product B and this is related to product A. So mark price of my product B is going to be, if I simplify this, I get it as 120. Again, I'm being told that y is the percentage above the cost price at which Ron marked product B. So my cost price is 100 and my mark price is 120. So above 100, I am making a markup of 20%. So that is nothing but my y. So y is 20%. So now I got x and y. X is 8% and y is 20%. Now the question is asking me how many times x is equal to y. So how many times? So a into x is y. I am being asked what the value of a is. It is nothing but y by x. So if I do 20 by 8, I'm going to get 2.5. That's my answer. I would say you are given price, right? Price and quantity. So you take the variable p for price and q for quantity as q. So if it has increased by x%, you can write p into 1 plus x by 100. I think that is clear. And if there is a percentage decrease, you can write it as into Q into 1 minus Y by 100. So your original revenue is PQ. Now your revenue is PQ into 1 plus X by 100 into 1 minus Y by 100. Now you want to determine was the revenue collected at new price. That is, my new price is PQ into 1 plus X by 100 into 1 minus Y by 100. Okay. Now, was the revenue collected at new price more than the revenue collected at original price? So you just want to determine if 1 plus X by 100 is into 1 minus Y by 100 is greater than 1. So if you take LCM and if you do that, you'll get 100 plus X into 100 minus Y is greater than 100,000. And again, if you further simplify it, you will get 100X minus 100Y minus 100X minus 100Y minus XY, and again plus 100,000 is greater than 100,000. So this gets cancelled and you are trying to figure out 100x minus 100y minus xy is greater than 1. That's what you are trying to figure out. And my first statement tells me that x is equal to y. If x is equal to y, that statement is like, so if I simplify it, 100x minus 100x minus x square, we want to determine if it is greater than 1. So this gets cancelled out. Minus x square is greater than 1. This is clearly no, this can never happen because x is some kind of a percentage, and whether it is positive or negative, uh, this whole term is always going to be positive, and minus of some number cannot be greater than 1. You get a clear no, and so you are able to answer this question prompt with this statement 1. So this is sufficient. And my question prompt, my statement 2 directly tells me that 100x minus 100y minus xy is less than 0, where I am looking if this is 100x minus 100y is greater than 1. Again, I am able to answer it as clearly no. So each statement alone is sufficient. So my answer is D. So if you just use these constants and percentages properly in equation wise, you'll be able to solve it.
Thanks all of you for participating today and taking your time. Thanks for watching the video, and do subscribe to our channel for more videos like this.